Hey there, I hope you're doing well. My name is Adam and today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy Reddit stories, consider liking, subscribing, and maybe hitting that notification bell too. Let's get started with today's first story. Much love, everyone. Today's first story comes from Man Digs Tunnel for 20 years, his belief was unbelievable. A successful banker falsely accused and convicted of the murders of his wife and her lover. He is sent to the notorious Shawshank State Prison to serve 2 life sentences, a facility with a reputation for being inescapable. Where many inmates have spent more of their lives behind bars than outside, over time, life beyond the prison walls has undergone significant transformations. Yet the prisoners are ignorant of these changes. Upon arrival, Andy retreats into solitude, refraining from interaction with others for an extended period. One day, Andy encounters a fellow inmate named Red, who has a reputation for smuggling contraband into the facility. Like Andy, Red is serving a life sentence and has been incarcerated for 2 decades. When Andy confides in Red that he needs a rock hammer and a poster of the actress Rita Hayworth, Red expresses doubt that Andy could use the tool to tunnel out of the prison. Despite Red's skepticism, Andy maintains that the hammer serves a different purpose, one that Red will understand in due time. After forming a bond, Red warns Andy of a group of dangerous prisoners known as the Sisters who have their sights set on him. At Andy's request, Red procures the requested hammer but can't help but think to himself that it would take 600 years to dig a tunnel with it. Andy has a passion for sculpting stones, which he indulges in using his cherished hammer. Over time, he has adapted to life in prison, making friends with the other inmates. However, one fateful night, Andy falls victim to 3 prisoners with ill intentions. Despite the trauma he endured, he remains silent, exhibiting bruises all over his body and a somber demeanor. One day, a group of prisoners, including Andy and Red, are selected to fix the roof. The man in charge, Hadley, seems displeased and shares with his comrades that he recently inherited $30,000 from his brother, but a significant portion will go towards taxes. Andy and his companions overhear Hadley's lament about his inheritance and taxes. Andy approaches Hadley and inquires about his trust in his wife. This inquiry enrages Hadley, who grabs Andy and brings him to the brink of the terrace. However, before things escalate further, Andy informs Hadley of a tax rule that allows a person to gift up to $60,000 to their spouse tax-free during their lifetime. With his background as a banker, Andy offers to assist Hadley in legally protecting his inheritance at no cost. In return, Andy requests 3 beers for each of his friends. The following day, Andy's friends are seen toasting with their beers on the terrace. Thanks to Andy's intervention, Hadley is able to retain his $30,000 inheritance. However, things take a turn for the worse when a movie is shown to the prisoners. After leaving the screening, Andy is ambushed by his attackers, who attempt to harm him once again. But this time, Andy fights back and is badly beaten. As a result, he sustains serious injuries and requires hospitalization. Meanwhile, the assailant is punished by being placed in solitary confinement for 1 week. Upon his return, Hadley seeks out Andy and beats him mercilessly, leaving him paralyzed for the rest of his life. Later, Warden Samuel Norton conducts a supposed cell check on Andy, but the visit serves as a mere pretext. Warden Norton seeks out Andy due to Officer Hadley's account of how Andy saved his $30,000 inheritance. During the visit, Norton confiscates Andy's Bible, claiming to have faith in the scripture. In Andy's cell, there are several photos of actors, including a large poster of Rita Hayworth, which Norton comments is usually not permitted, but exceptions can be made in special circumstances. Impressed by Andy, the warden invites him to his office and appoints him as an assistant librarian. There, Andy works under the supervision of an elderly man who has managed the library for many years. As time goes on, Andy's responsibilities increase and he eventually hires Red as his assistant. At one point, the elderly librarian under whom Andy works, Brooks, holds a knife to a man's neck. The government has granted Brooks a waiver for his sentence, but he chooses to remain in prison. Having spent 50 years there and considering it his real life, Brooks fears that if he were to take someone's life, his sentence would be extended and he would never leave the jail. However, after Andy and Red's persuasive words, Brooks lets the man go and decides against committing another crime. Upon his release, Brooks is overwhelmed by the changes in the outside world, which has rapidly evolved in the 50 years he spent in prison. Struggling to adapt to this fast-paced lifestyle, Brooks eventually takes his own life. The Shawshank Prison launches a new initiative called the In-Out Program, allowing prisoners to work outside the jail and learn the value of hard work. However, this program also becomes a means for Warden Norton to exploit cheap prison labor and make illegal profits through undercutting skilled labor costs and accepting bribes to cover up his illicit earnings. Andy assists Norton in creating a fake business partnership with a non-existent person named Randall Stevens. Through fake documents, the money is transferred to Stevens' account, making it impossible for the authorities to track down the true source of the illegal funds. A new inmate arrives at the prison, and his name is Tommy. When he hears about Andy's reputation for helping others, he approaches him and confides that he wishes to obtain his high school equivalency so that he can build a better life for himself and his family after being released from jail. Andy agrees to assist him and helps him pass the GED exam one day. Tommy poses a question to Red about Andy's crime that landed him in jail. Red reveals that Andy is serving time for killing his wife and her lover. Upon hearing this news, Tommy remains quiet, but later he shares with Andy and Red that he once had a fellow prisoner in another jail who had a captivating story. The prisoner Tommy spoke of broke into a house to steal but ended up killing the owners after they woke up. However, he later discovered that the couple were not married and the woman he killed was the wife of a wealthy banker. Eventually, the truth is revealed that the banker was responsible for the crime, all along absolving Andy of any wrongdoing. Despite this, Norton refuses to acknowledge the evidence presented to him by Andy. With the knowledge of Norton's illegal activities, Andy becomes a liability for the corrupt warden. Despite Andy's assurance of maintaining silence, Norton views it as a potential threat and punishes him with a month-long stay in solitary confinement. In a deceptive move, Norton invites Tommy for a conversation under false pretenses, leading him to believe that he would help Andy. In reality, Norton stages Tommy's escape attempt, resulting in his fatal shooting. Through this, Norton intends to keep Andy locked up in Shawshank Prison forever without any chance of release. Norton later confronts Andy, fabricating the story of Tommy's attempted escape as the reason for his death, despite knowing the truth. Andy finds himself in a difficult position as Norton holds leverage over him by threatening to destroy the library, remove his protection from the guards, and transfer him to the harshest conditions within Shawshank Prison. Reluctantly, Andy agrees to continue working for Norton. After spending a grueling 2 months in solitary confinement, Andy is finally released. Red and Andy have a conversation about the possibility of ever being able to leave the prison, to which Red pessimistically responds that it may only happen when they grow too old and their minds cease to function. But Andy has other plans, revealing his dream to escape to Zihuatanejo, a breathtaking place by the sea in Mexico. He remains determined to leave the prison and make a life for himself in this idyllic location. Red, who had been listening to Andy's dream of a new life in Mexico, expresses his doubts about the idea. He warns Andy that hope can be a double-edged sword as it can drive someone to madness. Red suggests that Andy must come back to reality and acknowledge that Mexico is an unrealistic destination. Andy acknowledges the truth in Red's words and feels he's left with only 2 choices, either to endure a life of misery or to give up entirely. As Andy prepares to leave, he makes a request of Red to find the big tree in the field of Buxton and the stone wall with a black stone that sits near it. There, Andy reveals something precious is buried beneath the stone with these instructions. Andy entrusts Red with a task that holds great meaning to him. Red is plagued by anxiety that night, as he fears that Andy might have taken his own life. He finds solace in the hope that Andy will return in the morning. The next day, when Red wakes up, he is taken aback to find that Andy's cell is open, but there's no sign of him. Confusion ensues among the guards as they begin to search for Andy, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Norton prepares himself to start the day, reaching out for his shoes, but what he finds in the shoebox is not his own shoes, but rather Andy's. The realization that something is amiss dawns upon him as he begins to realize the gravity of the situation. Norton had always underestimated Andy and never thought that he would outsmart him, but, as it turns out, Andy had been planning his escape for years and had meticulously set everything in motion. He had gathered all of Norton's documents and placed them in a secure location, ensuring that his tracks would be covered. Just before his escape, he left a subtle message for Red by replacing Norton's shoes with his own. It was his way of saying that he had finally found his way to freedom and hoped that Red would find his own someday. Norton's rage reaches its peak as he tries to uncover the mystery behind Andy's escape. He interrogates Red and the other inmates, but no one seems to have any information on Andy's whereabouts. Norton's frustration only increases, as he can't seem to find a plausible explanation for how Andy was able to break out of his cell undetected. In a fit of anger, he throws a small rock at a poster on the wall only to have it disappear into a hidden hole. Upon closer inspection, he discovers that Andy had been constructing a tunnel behind the poster. This revelation stuns everyone, including Norton, as the wall was deemed to be indestructible. Without the aid of heavy machinery, however, Andy had managed to achieve the impossible, using only his wit and determination to dig his way to freedom. After the realization of Andy's escape, the guards quickly rush to the exit point of his tunnel. There, they discover Andy's discarded prison attire, as well as a bar of soap, a comb, and a hammer that Red had given him 2 decades prior. This hammer had played a crucial role in Andy's endeavor to dig the tunnel, as he had been carefully removing the dirt and hiding it in his pockets. Additionally, Andy had taken advantage of his previous job working for the warden and had kept important documents detailing the warden's illegal finances, as well as a Bible safely stored in Norton's personal safe. Unbeknownst to Norton, Andy had even kept the clothes and shoes the warden had given him to clean, using them as an extra layer of disguise in his escape. Once the lights of the prison were switched off for the night, Andy emerged from the tunnel he had secretly created in the wall. He then navigated the treacherous 2-football field-length gutter pipe and made his way to freedom, becoming the first prisoner to successfully escape from the jail. The following day, Andy made his way to the bank where he was able to retrieve the $295 million that were kept under the fake name of Norton's supposed business partner, Randall Stevens. Andy had been the one to sign for this fabricated individual while still in jail. So he assumed this new identity to access the money and start a new, much more affluent life, with all the necessary documentation in hand. Andy was now both free and wealthy. The next morning, the press was flooded with news about Norton's illegal business practices. All thanks to the documentation that Andy had sent to them. When Norton opens the safe, instead of finding his documents, he comes across a Bible. On the first page, there's a note left by Andy that reads, "You were right. Salvation is truly in this book." Norton turns the page and discovers that the hammer that Andy had used to escape was hidden inside the pages of the same Bible, carefully cut and disguised in the shape of the hammer. It's worth mentioning that 20 years ago, the same Bible was taken away from Andy by Norton, but even then, the hammer was hidden within its pages. The message that Andy left for Norton serves as a reminder that redemption and freedom can be found in the most unexpected places. The truth of Norton's wrongdoing has finally been brought to light, as the authorities approach to take him into custody. Norton tragically takes his own life later. Red's sentence is also commuted and he secures employment, but he struggles to readjust to life outside of prison after spending over 40 years behind bars. Red even finds himself in the same room that former inmate Brooks once occupied and contemplates ending his own life. But then he recalls a promise he made to Andy. He travels to a field where he finds a large tree and a wall of stones with a black stone, just as Andy had described. Upon lifting the stone, Red discovers a box filled with a letter and some money. Red finds a letter from Andy who requests Red's presence at a location in Zihuatanejo. The letter also contains an inspirational message, reminding Red that hope is a precious and indestructible thing that should never be lost. Upon arriving at the designated place, Red is overjoyed to find Andy waiting for him, working on a boat near the shore. I'm going to turn this one over to you. What do you make of this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time mean the world to me. So, thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.